Greetings, traveler. When you're developing a game, have you ever been in a situation where you're struggling to find enough content or to create enough content for the players to pad out 5, 10, 50 hours, whatever the goal you have for that game is? My name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for over 10 years now, and this is something that has happened to me a lot. It has happened to people I work with a lot. It's certainly a requirement that's put on us by producers, directors, whoever happens to be there at the time. And when I play video games myself, I find that many of them have a very limited amount of content when it comes to story or cutscenes or unique content like that. And most of the game is composed of repetitive fetch quests, kill quests, go kill 5 goblins, now go kill 5 hobgoblins, and so on. Very, very repetitive, very grindy style content that doesn't seem to add much to the value of the game, and it doesn't seem to be fun. It just seems to be something to do rather than serving the goal, the overarching goal of the game, the main storyline or the theme of the game. It just seems like busy work. So when dealing with this problem, I noticed that at the same time, the same games really put very, very little focus and emphasis on the tutorial of the game. And that is another problem all by itself. But as I was designing these games and experiencing these two problems side by side, I thought, well, why don't we put these two problems together and create a solution out of them? Let me explain what I mean. So traditionally, when we design games, we want to show players all the wonderful things we made as quickly as possible, right? So in many cases, when you start playing a game, the game front loads all the tutorial as quickly as possible, usually in the form of blocks of text or a long drawn out speaking sequence from an NPC, and they want to get over with that part as quickly as possible, and then they want to let you experience the rest of the game essentially. And then there's usually no way to revisit that content, definitely not in such a high detail as it was presented to you during the tutorial. So it comes to you at a moment where you don't really want it or you don't expect it, the tutorial, and even though it's so important, it's really hard to revisit it or to get the same quality of a tutorial experience later on in the game when you have forgotten the content of the tutorial, or when you want to read the details and get mastery over it and so on. And that's a really problematic situation, I thought. So what I started doing instead is say, well, what if we thought of tutorials as actual content for the game? So instead of trying to think of it as a necessary evil, and of course the players don't know how to play the game, so we have to go through this process of teaching them. Instead of thinking like that, why not think of the tutorial as the content of the game? And why not, instead of front loading it and giving it to the player as quickly as possible, whether they're ready for it or not, why not spread it out through the entire game and let the players experience it not just once, but several times and from several angles? Famously, Nintendo and Mario games are very, very good at this. In a Mario game, whenever there's a new power-up or a new special thing you can use, they don't just teach it to you once with text and then forget about it. They famously go through this process where they first introduce it by showing somebody else using it or giving it to you for free and letting you play around with it. Then you use it through its normal case. Then you do some advanced cool things with that mechanic. And finally, they show you a situation or a way to completely turn that mechanic on its head and discover even more that you can do with this unique power-up and so on. So they do this process not in 1 minute. They have entire stages, an entire sequence of stages for this typically 4-step process of introducing their mechanics. Now, of course, the games that we create are all different format, different types, so it doesn't have to be taught in 4 stages. But when I realized that the tutorial itself is content, and because you can revisit the same mechanic from different angles and show all the different things that one mechanic can do, that can remind the player what this weapon or this power or this feature is, and it can teach the player all the different ways it can be used. And instead of struggling to think of new quests for your game or new content and having to use these grindy type of actions, exploring all the different ways a mechanic or an enemy or a feature or whatever can be used and can be present in your game is a way more interesting experience for myself as a designer and for my players as I saw it through our games than simply filling the game with fetch quests and collectibles and so on. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with those, right? Those are fun as well. We like to collect things, we like to complete collections and so on. That's definitely a fun part of the game. But in addition to that, if the tutorial shows to the player in an organic way all the ways the mechanics can be used and how those tie back to the original story of the game or the main goal you're trying to achieve, that is what creates a much more immersive experience, and it's much more enjoyable, and it doesn't feel grindy because you're not doing the same thing all the time. You're exploring something from a new angle every time, and thus keeping things fresh. So if you know someone who is currently designing something like that, or is struggling because they want to pad out their game with more play hours and so on, maybe share this video with them. Maybe it will give them a couple of cool ideas for how to move forward. That's it for today. Always thank you for your time and have fun.